One interesting thing about the internet is that no matter how universal a perspective you attempt to share, there will always be people who are like, no, 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 no.
This TikTok is demonstrating how social media has hacked your brain.
Like earlier today, I was on Twitter, which I know, my bad, and I was trying to make the point that we all agree that nuclear and biological weapons shouldn't be available for sale at Walmart, right? No, it turns out we don't all agree about that. So many people replied to me being like, if the government can buy something, private citizens should be able to buy it. And I was like, man, that's a hot take. I don't think it's a good take, but it's a spicy meatball. I mean, that is a hot take. And of course, because it's such a piping hot take, lots of people responded to it and were like, I really don't think we should sell nuclear weapons at Walmart. And then people were like, yes, we should, you idiots. And because Twitter's algorithm confused that for conversation, it was like, we should put this at the top. It's increasing engagement. And I was just thinking like, wow, there really are people out there who think the only way to stop a bad guy with a vial of smallpox is a good guy with a vial of smallpox.
So this TikTok by John Green points out how some of the most absurd and absolutely vile takes tend to go viral on social media websites, especially ones like Twitter. And it really has to do with the way that Twitter hijacks your brain, and other social media websites do the same thing, really. You'll notice something, that on social media platforms, it tends to be that the main characters of these platforms are always in a disagreement with each other. But usually the people that are in disagreement with each other, the people that rise to meteoric fame, are typically the ones who are sort of crummy in one way or another. But when they bump into each other, and you have two people who are crummy in slightly different ways, you can have these communities that feed off of each other. Quite literally, they use anger to basically accelerate themselves to being the top of the trend. And that anger component is really critical, because there's another layer to this, which is the reality of social truth. The reality is, humans are social creatures, and we like to believe and do things that we think other people believe and do. So, if you see an idea that is popular, you are more willing to adopt that idea regardless as to whether or not it is actually true. And this is why social media becomes so dangerous, because even if you have something that is gaining attention because tons of people are disagreeing with it, people that have a sort of countercultural instinct will take on that idea unironically as their own, regardless as to whether or not it's actually true. And so what ends up happening is, even if you try to call out an idea as particularly egregious, you might actually increase the number of people that see it and engage in this sort of social truth where, well, because other people believe it, that gives me permission to also believe it. And when you're talking about things that are like racist, for example, if people already have a baseline amount of racist assumptions that they have embedded into their mind because of the society that we live in, and then they see a take, even if it's being dunked on Twitter, that is all over the place, they will see that as permission to adopt that idea as their own, or at very least to be more vocal with it. And so what ends up happening is, some of the most popular discourse on Twitter is not popular there because it's actually popular, because the ideas themselves are popular. It becomes popular because people disagree with it so much. And this is one of the ways that the extreme right has been able to use social media to springboard itself to the forefront of the conversation. And it has created an incentive for people to say the most salacious and outrageous and bigoted things that they can think of in order to get attention. And they do just enough mental gymnastics, and they do just enough dog whistling so that they can claim that they're not being overtly racist, so that they can claim that they're not just being heinous for no reason. And thus they've created a community that can claim to be against things like racism while also saying the most racist things you could ever imagine. And then what those communities do from there is they pick a target that disagrees with them but is problematic in a different way, so that they can elevate their platform and say, well, look at what they're doing. The people who are disagreeing with me are doing this bad thing. And now all of a sudden, you have two main characters with two audiences that follow them that are both crummy in different ways, that are really feeding off each other, and they're using anger as a weapon. And of course, platforms like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube don't really have a problem with this. And of course, platforms like Twitter and Facebook don't really have a problem with this because it gets them engagement and it keeps you on the website more. more. Because if you see a take that makes you incredibly angry, that makes you even more likely to go and throw a comment down. And when you throw a comment down, now all of a sudden all of your friends are looking at that take as well. And maybe they're angry too and they're leaving a comment. And now you've created an outrage cycle. And an outrage cycle that fuels the audience of the gladiators of the internet, who are all challenging each other to go as far as they can with their cringe edgelord posting on Twitter. All for that sweet, sweet attention. While at the same time allowing people to engage in this form of social truth that makes many people feel comfortable adopting some of the most vile ideas you could possibly think of. So even when you say something that you think that everybody would agree with, nowadays you can always find somebody who wants to be a contrarian and thinks that proves how smart they are. Or maybe they're just hoping to be the next main character of Twitter.